Chapter 2 Island Girl Values. The Latina in me is an ember that blazes forever. Sonia's strength also stemmed from her roots, from somewhere deep inside a tropical paradise on the island of Puerto Rico. Her family came mostly from the western side of the island, far from the hustle and bustle of San Juan, the capital. Calm, crystalline Caribbean waters added to the majesty of the picture. The town of Mayaguez, a coastal town settled by Tainos, initially named Nuestra Señora de la Candelaria de Mayaguez, is where much of Sonia's family settled, also known as the Land of Clear Waters, or City of Mangoes. Mango trees abound, as well as lush green tropical forests. Agricultural lands once produced coffee and sugarcane. Colorful houses dotted different neighborhoods on the hillsides that offered extraordinary vistas of the turquoise waters below. In the center of the town, the Plaza de Colón, named after Christopher Columbus, drew the crowds. Festivals and celebrations were held there, but it also served as a place where the community gathered. Colorful storefronts reflected Spanish architecture, like the courthouse and the church that the town was initially named after, Nuestra Señora de la Candelaria. The Black Madonna, patron saint of the Canary Islands, held a candle as if lighting the way. The church faced the square, as if protecting it. Sonia's Uncle Tito's bakery, a panaderia y reposteria, which had been in the family for decades, stood next to the church. Sonia's family made a name for itself there, but it wasn't always so. Celina Baez, Sonia's mother, was born in 1927, 18 miles from Mayaguez, in the sleepy village of Lajas. When her own mother died, Celina was only 9 years old. Shortly afterward, her father abandoned her and her 4 brothers and sisters. Under the legal age of 18, that made Celina an orphan. For a while, her older sister raised them. Other family members and their paternal grandmother helped them out. Their generosity with food and staples got them by. Generations of the Baez family had lived off farmland where coffee and sugarcane crops grew and were great exports for the United States. But hurricanes whipped through and devastated the crop industry, and it never fully recovered. Other jobs outside agriculture were difficult to find. The average income earned in Lajas came in under $8,000 a year, well below the poverty line. Celina liked to learn, but attending school proved difficult at times. With one pencil in the house to share between the siblings, their mother and father guarded it as if it were gold. Even though the literacy rate in the town was dismal, Celina seemed determined to use her education to improve her lot in life. Since there were no notebooks to write in, she memorized her lessons and recited them out loud, practicing every chance she could. She often pretended that the few trees outside their humble home were students. But there was nowhere in Lajas for her to make a decent living. The choices to thrive in their community were slim. Celina saw a dead-end kind of life for herself if she stayed in Puerto Rico. So she packed her bags, and with fearless drive and a lot of courage, many would later say Sonia inherited this fearless independence from her mother. She left the island at 17 to join the Women's Air Corps, WAC, a new branch of the U.S. Army at the time, created during World War II when more help was needed to aid U.S. troops. The WAC recruited 200 Puerto Rican women. Assigned to work in Georgia, Celina worked tirelessly to make a life for herself in the mainland United States, despite being alone in a foreign country and speaking only halting English. Holding fast to her love of Puerto Rican traditions, values, and joy of living, as well as her own values that revolved around education, a strong work ethic and drive, she made ends meet. When her time served, she left the WAC and met Juan Sotomayor, another Puerto Rican. During World War II, after Celina was discharged, they dated, fell in love, married, and moved to New York, where he got a job as a factory worker. She returned to school to earn her GED, a high school equivalency diploma, and immediately went to work. Her job in the local hospital would later inspire her to return to school to become a nurse. Nuyorican spirit. Sonia's father, Juan Sotomayor, had only a third-grade formal education, but he had a knack for math and figuring out problems, a skill Sonia would inherit. With a flair for photography, Juan was also what Sonia called enormously creative. He read poetry, liked to cook, and created sumptuous dishes like the finest of chefs. Sonia's parents worked hard to make ends meet. Their extended families moved nearby, so that by the time Sonia and her brother Juan Luis Jr. were born, their Puerto Rican family flourished in the Bronx. Known as Nuyoricans, born in New York but with Puerto Rican roots, they looked to their abuelita Mercedes, her dad's mother, as the matriarch or head of the family. Surrounded by cousins and uncles and aunts, Sonia was raised by the "it takes a village" mentality, but had a special connection with her grandmother and often found a safe haven with her. In a time when disparity and racism raged in the 1960s and 70s, being Nuyorican sometimes proved difficult. Sonia found comfort in knowing that strength in family and tradition could transcend racial tensions. Despite the hardship of dealing with poverty in the city, together they were strong. The joy of the island music, in dance like salsa or in the unique instruments like the guiro and maracas, gave them a beat to live by. With that rhythm in their hearts, clear values and traditions, they knew, at least at home, they were safe. The beauty of the Spanish language and Puerto Rican culture came to life in family get-togethers. Even though the palm trees and crystal blue waters were missing, island generosity and tradition was brought into the Bronx when Selena opened their apartment home to Sonia's friends and gave them a safe place to come and hang out. She cooked them Puerto Rican food like plates of pork chops, arroz y gandules y pernil, mofongo, and other delights, which were eaten at countless family get-togethers, holidays, and special events. All the while, heavy discussions could be had or music could be playing. Sometimes Sonia's friends sat side by side with her Titia Aurora, watching television and singing commercial jingles in Spanish. On Saturdays, the women would gather in their little apartment kitchens and shoo the kids out. Sonia's aunts and grandmother would bring the vitality and island living to life by cooking up sofrito, a homemade seasoning of tomatoes, garlic, onions, tomatillos, and a variety of green, yellow, and red peppers, all day long amid music, laughter, gossip, eating, and loving, lively exchanges. The festivities gave a sense of family and love. Sonia wanted to hear every word as they chopped vegetables, talked, laughed, and exchanged gossip. Sonia pressed her ear against the kitchen door to hear. She wanted to be a part of that link of womanhood, of that link to her heritage, of that link to two worlds. Sometimes in school or on the street, Spanish was treated as though it were inferior to English. Then and there in the kitchen, with her family, all she could hear was the sing-song lilt of a beautiful language that she was privileged to, and it didn't sound foreign. Being able to speak both was suddenly a blessing. After those Saturday family dinners, which often also included games of dominoes or cards, they'd clear the table to get down to Sonia's favorite part of the evening, when Sonia's grandpa and grandma would read poetry out loud. Mostly they seemed to read to each other, but even so, it was inspiring and even romantic. It seemed to transport them back to the island. The recitals educated Sonia about her culture, brought it to life, and brought her much joy. Holding on to the island breeze. And so even though Puerto Rico was thousands of miles away, it gained a place in Sonia's heart via the poetry of her grandparents and the rhythm of each musical note played in their homes. The spirit of their culture and island living was brought to life by dance or by instruments like guitarras, gyros, cuatros, and maracas. On visits to the island, Sonia connected with her roots and began to realize what made it special. In Mayaguez, only 2 hours from San Juan, but it felt like a world away with its relaxed flow of beaches and lifestyle, she found peace and connection with her roots. Even with American industries setting up shop in the Commonwealth, Sonia didn't see the political or economic difficulties there, only the warmth of the sunshine and love of her family. The rainforests and tropical feel, mangoes fresh from the trees, and piraguas, snow cones, for hot summer days were what Sonia remembered. When she closed her eyes, she might picture the little Coqui, the tiny island frog that could sit on a fingertip. The diverse beauty of the island laid the foundation for living in the wonderful world in which she was beginning to find a home. Being bicultural meant that she was raised with two worlds at her fingertips. She was lucky to speak pretty decent Spanish, but her brother, who was 3 years younger, didn't speak much Spanish at all. Sonia couldn't dance salsa or keep a beat, and she thought that was embarrassing for a Latino household. But her cousins, on the other hand, were naturals and could dance the night away. It made her realize that every Latino has a different experience and helped her not stereotype others. Sonia later said, "Although I'm an American, love my country, and could achieve its opportunity of succeeding at anything I worked for, I also have a Latina soul and heart with the magic that carries."